you have a reward at the end of that task. Whether that is watching a film or going shopping, make sure you have a little reward at the end of that task that you do not want to do, because it will motivate you to do it, because you know there's a reward at the end of it. Also, make yourself a to-do list and put the things at the top of your to-do list that you need to do first. Put it up in your office or in your home, because people do procrastinate both at work and in their personal life. Put it somewhere where you can see it, and make sure that you work through that logically. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and then you can actually tick off what you are doing, and that will give you a sense of achievement. So small steps, give yourself rewards, and do a to-do list. Those are really simple, practical things that can make your procrastination disappear. So I've addressed procrastination. I haven't put it off for any longer than I needed to do. So now we're just going to play a song, and I actually started Googling the other day positive songs, and this song popped up and I can't stop playing it. It is so addictive. It's by an unknown artist. The song is called The Road Is Fine by Nick Ebler, and it's brilliant. I love it. Here it is.
Let's turn and bright. I live with no
So welcome back, and as I said, my guest today is Soo Matthews. So Soo, tell me about yourself and about NLP for Kids.
Okay, so I've been a teacher for 35 years, worked in a range of different places from mainstream to specialist education, a secure children's home for a year over in North Leeds, and most recently set up a Key Stage 3 small provision for Pivot Academy that's a specialist provision for children with emotional needs. And about 10 years ago I became really interested in professional development for myself with NLP. And then I realised because it helped me so much, there was a way to help children as well.
You mentioned NLP. What does that stand for and how does it work?
So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and it's basically a toolbox of different strategies that people can learn and develop for themselves that helps them to understand how the brain works, how they communicate with the world, how they interpret the world, why their reactions are the way that they are, why they have fears about different things and phobias. And they are very practical strategies that can help you change your way of thinking and get you out of your old patterns of thinking and into new ways of thinking and doing and being.
Thank you. So you were introduced to that for yourself.
I was.
Initially, and then you thought this could work with children that you were actually working with?
That's right, and I've been one of those teachers who's been very fortunate that I've always been able to relate well with children. And I don't like the term, but they used to send all the naughty children to me. You need to go and see Miss Matthews, go and talk to Miss Matthews because she'll know what to do with you. And basically, before I knew about NLP and some of these other therapies that I do now, I would just sit and talk to the children and listen to them. And the listening bit was where you actually got a lot of the information about what was going on for them in the first place. And I mean, I've always realised children don't often get listened to enough when they've got issues going on in their lives. And so when they're anxious, they might very often be told, oh, you'll be all right, a bit reet. to coin a Yorkshire phrase, be reet. The more you listen to children, the more you understand what's actually going on for them in their world. Because as grown-ups, we forget what it was like to be a child. And these days, there's so many different influences on young people that add to their stresses.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I mean, when I was younger, there was, no social media. There was no, the only exams we had were at the end of the year or GCSEs. I mean, now they are constantly testing the children throughout.
Yeah. And
the pressure they must be under to perform, because that's what they have to do, isn't it?
It is.
It is a completely different world now. And I mean, to be honest, I don't think I would want to be a child growing up now,
No.
to be honest.
And I mean, I've always said, if I had my time over, I wouldn't do another job. I've loved teaching so much. Now, I'm not quite so sure because a lot of the fun's been taken out. But you still have a good number of teachers who do rebel against the system and do keep that fun aspect in schools for children and are forward thinking. These days there's the Mental Health Award for schools that schools can go for through Leeds Beckett University, and that's recognising the different issues that young people have and acknowledging that there's work to be done in that area for children. And there's, you see on Facebook the fantastic letters that teachers and head teachers send out. You are more than your exams. Your exams are a moment in time that tell you how you're doing, what you've remembered on that day at that time for that question. They're not who you are as a person.
Yeah, because there's so many famous people or successful people out there that have no qualifications. And that's because the education system teaches in only one way. It's not recognising the other skills.
I don't have any formal qualifications. I left school at 15 with nothing. That was my own fault, I have to say. But
was it your fault, Richard, or was it that the teachers just didn't understand how to help you learn best?
probably the latter.
Yeah.
If I'm being brutally honest.
Yeah.
My first wife was a teacher, so I used to joke her saying that she learns me well, you know, and I do that with the kids now. But yeah, my career's advice was go be a plasterer.
Right.
She didn't even make any attempt to get to know me, what I were into, or school bored me, if I'm honest. But I've learnt more since I left.
But were you more of a physical child who liked doing rather than sitting and writing? Yeah. And that's where the education system is flawed, in my humble opinion, because
not every child is going to be an academic.
No, and not every child learns in the same way. Some would learn better
I'm a
to
visual
hearing.
learner. I'm a visual learner.
Visual, and kinesthetic and doing. And these days, it's a lot better understood that there are these different ways of approaching education in school, and different pathways that children can go on now, which is really good.
And do you think that it has changed a lot to accommodate different learning styles?
I think a lot of schools have.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of schools nowadays that have quite rigid, very rigid behaviour policies, and rigid behaviour policies don't allow for the kind of children with particular needs, like the social and emotional needs, the children with autism or ADHD who find it difficult to sit still in a classroom, and so need a different approach. And that's one of the things that we provide at Pivot, is a different approach to the way that we teach the young people, and a better understanding of the background of the young people, the fact that some of them have had traumatic backgrounds and that affects the brain development, and that in turn affects how they're going to interact with the world and the relationships with people.
So I always joked about my birthday is 24th of August, make a note if you want. So in an academic year, I was the youngest. I missed the year below by about a week. So I was the youngest in my class, and I know I do joke now because I've got past that, but then a year is a long time in a child's development. So that was my excuse why I was thick with a capital F.
No, I honestly think, Richard, that you weren't taught the way you wanted to be taught. You have a different...
It was different then. I'm 47 now, so it was slightly different then, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, but I mean, look at you now and where you are now.
Well fit are.
And you've had you've got no qualifications. But I do genuinely think that the education system still has to change even more to recognise that individual children have individual needs. It's not one system to fit all.
Exactly. And that's very much the approach I take when young people come to see me. So I don't just use NLP, for example.
Okay.
I use thought field therapy or tapping.
Right, okay. Can you explain both of those?
So, well, thought field therapy and tapping, emotional freedom technique, they all describe the same thing. So it's based on the meridian points in the body. Okay. And you, so for example, you've got a karate chop on the side of your hand.
Right.
For those who've been on Facebook, I think they can probably see me tapping. Then on top of your head, through the eyebrow, the side of the eye, under the eye, under the nose, under the mouth, chest bone, under the arm. And while you're doing that, there's things that you can say to acknowledge. So if you're feeling stressed, for example, you acknowledge that you feel the stress. You say whereabouts you feel it in the body, and that it's okay to feel that stress, and you know that it's just your body telling you you're stressed, and you have got the ability to do something about it.
Right.
So I did a very short tapping actually last night with one of the rangers at our guide unit at the very end. They've got GCSE exams this week. It's English on Wednesday. Good luck for everybody doing that.
Oh yeah, good luck to everybody who's doing GCSEs.
And she was quite stressed. And year 6 SATs as well.
My little one's doing hers next week. Good luck, Lily.
And hopefully they know that they're more than their SATs.
I keep telling
more than their SATs.
My approach is completely different, as I'm sure you can imagine, to her mum's. So
yeah. So last night I did a short tapping session just at the very end of ranges with the young lady concerned, and she said she felt much calmer, and I was able to recommend a free app for anybody else who's interested. There's a free app called the Tapping Solution that you can download on your phone, and they do a video. They've got about 6 or 7 different tappings on the free app, and you can pay to upgrade to get more. But they've got ones for anxiety, stress, motivation, going back to procrastination from earlier, PTSD, so a range of different things, and it's proven to be very effective. But I will see the young person, talk with them and their parents, decide which approach is going to be best for them. So it's kind of a menu of different things, really. And Haven, England, which is where we met.
Yes.
I call that the strokey arm therapy.
Okay.
So because I'm working with children sometimes as young as 4, you need to find a different way to express these things.
You know, the strokey arm, that's used for PTSD and stuff like
that's
that,
right,
isn't it?
Fears
Is it Phil?
No, it's Paul McKenna that brought it into the UK.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
Sensory therapy that we use that removes
I think
negative.
some of the police railway staff have been using it down on 7-7 attacks.
Yes, yeah. It removes negative feelings attached to negative memories. And that in a way demonstrates that the education system needs to look at individuals. If you get a child that comes to you and they tell you their problem or what's going on or their anxiety, then you assess that and decide which technique to use.
Yeah, and it's age dependent. So with the younger children, just reaching over, we'll do stress jars.
Okay.
So that they've got a calming jar to watch the glitter. I've got nice stress balls with things in as well.
Those listening on the radio on the app, there's a glitter ball or just a jam jar with coloured water and glitter in.
And a bit of PVA glue.
Just
to make it a bit thicker, to make it go down a bit slower.
And just to shake it and just to watch it. Because even doing something like that is like being in the moment, isn't it? It's being present and watching the glitter go down to the bottom, shake it again and watch it again. And that in itself is a calming technique to reduce the stress and the anxiety.
Yeah. And it's also a distraction because whilst they're watching that and concentrating on that, you've got a way into their mind, so you can ask them some probing questions. And you can ask them, I usually start, if it's anxiety based, for example, start by asking whereabouts they feel it in their body.
Right.
So for you parents out there, if you've got a child who has regular stomach aches, then their anxiety probably starts in their stomach. If they've got regular headaches, then their anxiety probably starts in their head. And they've probably got a little voice in there that's telling them that they can't do this, or this is too hard, or I'm no good at this, and that builds up their anxiety. So it does show up in the body, as is becoming much better known in the world of neuroscience these days. So I'll use different techniques depending on the age of the child and what they're able to cope with. So I'll use a lot of story-based metaphors. Okay. Very simple ones.
Can you give an example of that?
I've got a good one for anger.
Okay.
So do you want the story or do you want the practical bit as well?
We can have both.
We can have both. So there's a book that I use called Harry the Hypnopotamus. So not hippopotamus, hypnopotamus. So the stories are slightly hypnotic.
Okay.
Because that's another strategy I do use with young people is the hypnosis. And in there, there's a story about Kenzie the kangaroo who was very angry. And this is where you need the pen.
Okay.
You need the special pen. So I'm just giving Narelle a lovely purple pen of a kangaroo with boxing gloves on. And by pressing some levers at the back, the kangaroo actually boxes. And the story of Kenzie, I'll shorten it for the radio, but he's a very angry kangaroo, and his dad tells him to go out, and you still need the pen.
Oh, I still need the pen, okay.
To go out and hit a tin fence out the back. And I usually hold up a piece of tin foil for the children. That's what you can hear rattling now. And they batter the tin foil. The tin foil starts off nice and smooth, and then with them battering it, it becomes quite creased. And each of those hits is the hit of anger. And we look at how the tin foil's changed and the fact that it's got some dents in it. Narelle's been very gentle here. The children usually make it much more crinkled than that. And then I give it back to them and I say, right, now let's spread it out a bit more. Let's get it back to the nice smoothness that it was before. And they'll try, and they get it quite smooth. And then we'll talk about, did that really show their anger? And if it hasn't, sometimes they will crumple it all up. And then I'll ask them to smooth it out again, and they'll struggle. And then we talk about the damage that anger actually does. And this was a piece of tin foil that doesn't matter. And that whilst ever we've got a lot of anger in us, sometimes people will forgive us, but the damage is still being done. And it's about helping them to understand that they can actually repair that damage and giving them strategies and techniques that they can use to help bring down their anger and calm down.
Yeah, and also...
I'll take that off.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Also, you know, when people hold on to anger, it's such a negative feeling that it actually can do some physical damage inside of us if we hang on to that. So we need to know how to release that and deal with that, don't we?
We absolutely do, and we need to know what the causes of it are to begin with, because there's a good meme that pops up regularly all around the place, which is anger is sad's bodyguard. So, and there's another one with the anger iceberg, and underneath you see the tip of the iceberg, which is anger, but underneath that is frustration, fear, all those negative emotions, you know, nervousness, anxiousness, terror for some children. And the only way they know to get it out is to show that they're angry. And sometimes they're not in control of that anger. So it's about helping them to recognise where it's coming from, what are the first symptoms of their anger. So for a lot of children, they will feel body temperature changes. They'll get very hot. They might actually stop hearing. So as an adult, if you want to kind of imagine it, if you put your hands over your ears, you'll start to hear the world quite muffled. So then when as an adult you're talking to the child and they're very angry, they're not actually hearing you properly. They're hearing you through that muffled anger. A little bit like we've got our headphones on. That's kind of what it's like with the children. They'll have feelings in their stomach. They'll get very tense. Their faces will change. And sometimes even just showing children what their face looks like in a mirror when they're angry. And they go, oh, is that me? Do I look like that? And they go, oh, I don't like that.
Yeah,
it's very powerful.
You don't realise, do you? And as you say, that anger is masking something else.
It is.
And sometimes they may not know what that is. And you know, need to work through that and get to the bottom of that.
Yeah. And very often with parents, in the initial appointment I have with them, the young people will say something and the mum or dad will go, really? You've never told me that. If you told me, we could have done something about it. And for whatever reason, the child's held on to it and not wanted to say. And sometimes it can be quite minor things the families can change easily. Sometimes it's actually, a little bit going back to what Richard was saying earlier about school, sometimes it's school related and they're actually being bullied. And they don't know how to cope with it. And so they become angry with the people around them that are not protecting them from the bullies at school. But they're too scared to say that they're being bullied because they're worried what other people will think of them.
I was a very angry young man.
Were you?
Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah, I'd fight anything and anyone, and I were only a scrawny little runt as well, so it wasn't as if I was...
So what do you think was behind that then?
Well, my mum passed away when I was 12, so for 5 years she was really poorly, so I kind of did a lot of looking after her and all the rest of it. So yeah, I had lots of... and I actually went for counselling as an adult, not as a child, but I could manipulate situations because of my situation as well.
Yeah. And these days,
kids are quite cute, you know.
They are, but you know, the traumas like losing your mum at such a young age, that's becoming much more widely known about. And there's something called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, which there's a whole research, a whole vast field of research and people providing resources for schools and teachers and parents and training to help them understand the impact that has. Because, you know, your mum is so important to you, and losing her, especially after an illness. Luckily these days there are more awareness in schools and youth groups about things like that, and I think there are better services available for young
like
people.
I say, it's you know, I don't harbour that, you know. I mean, I'm quite matter of fact about things and just get on with it. And you know, my way of growing up was making a joke. You know, every Mother's Day I always it's sick. I know it's sick, is it? And the kids will be going on about Mother's Day. Oh, that's nice. My mum's dead. You know, but it's my way of dealing with it, and I try and bring humour to it, and it's not funny. Not funny at all. But
it's how you deal with it, isn't it?
Everybody handles things a lot differently. But
but you, as a child, you wouldn't have been offered counselling, would you?
I remember there was somebody in school who came in. This is at middle school, Cathedral Middle School, and the only reason why I agreed to it is because I didn't want to do maths. That's all about manipulating.
This is true.
And I turned the waterworks on. Very rare I cried, but you know, it was more out of. I used to, if I were angry, you know. But yeah, you know, going back. But over a period, I've got lots of patience. But then sometimes I'm real approach where I can go vertical quite quick, but I can, on the same token, I come down as quick as well, you know.
And that's your internal resilience there. And you know, resilience again is a bigger part of the school curriculum now, which is really good. It's really positive to help children build that in. I'm a bit sneaky about, you know, working with some of the children. So when I was at Adelbeck Secure Home, I taught something called projects with a fantastic teacher called Elaine, and they had some sewing machines, and we made cushions. So I'd get the fabric from Morley Market, because there's a stall there that sells offcuts of fabric for £1, really lovely velvety type fabrics, and we'd talk to them about the fabrics as we were going along, and this was boys, and some people were going, and I do it now at Pivot as well, oh, the boys won't want to make cushions. Well, actually they do, they love it. And you know, they now have got it down to a fine art. They can make a cushion in 45 minutes, start to finish. But when you start with them, learning the sewing machine, you're in control of how fast it goes. The harder you push down on the pedal, the faster it will go. And then initially they'll go, because it's a bit like a car, isn't it? It's a pedal, let's go. And they go, and sorry, that was me shuffling around there. But they panic because it's going too fast for them. And then it's a way in for me to talk about their emotions. And when you are getting too angry too quickly, it's because your thoughts are racing ahead, and you're going to the disaster situation and escalating it in your mind before you've even got past the first thought. So I'm quite sneaky with them like that, and they go home with lovely cushions.
Wow. Well, it's been
and
very,
life skills.
Very, very interesting. Now, I asked Sue to choose 2 songs. So, would you like to introduce your first song, Sue?
Which one are we having first?
It's entirely up to you.
We've got Just a Ride or...
Okay. Well, can we have Gem first then? So, Just a Ride. This song, I worked at Primrose High School for many years, and we had a Year 11 leaving ceremony at the Yorkshire Playhouse. And at the time, this song was high in the charts, and for me it summed up what life is like for all of us, really. It's just a ride, and what we get out of it is up to us. And it was an amazing night, and this song always brings back happy memories of that particular school and children.
So you're listening to Rel Summers, Be Kind to Your Mind, live on Smile Radio. And don't forget, if you've missed this show or any other, you can go to our website, smileradio.co, click on demand and download. Or you can download the podcast from Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, and all the great podcasting sites. So this is Just a Ride by Gem. We'll be right back after this.
Except that there's no getting off. So living, just gotta go with it. 'Cause this ride's never gonna stop. Break down, don't you break down. No need to break down, no need at all. Because it's just a ride, it's just a ride. No need to run, no need to hide. It'll take you all around. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. It's just a ride, it's just a ride. Don't be scared, now dry your eyes. It may feel so real inside, but don't forget, enjoy the ride. It's just a ride, it's just a ride. No need to run, no need to hide. It'll take you all around. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. It's just a ride, it's just a ride. Don't be scared, now dry your eyes. It may feel so real inside, but don't forget, enjoy the ride.
We're right back.
All right,
We've been
yeah.
about. Here we are.
Get that one back out then.
So I'll stop that because the next song's going to play. We don't want that just yet.
Welcome back.
You can tell we're live, can't you?
And Soo Matthews, my guest, is still here.
Hi.
So I know that you have a company called NLP4KIDS, West Yorkshire.
Yeah.
So how did they get to this? So tell us a little bit about how we can find you. And
So, well, I need to say first of all, NLP4KIDS was developed by a fabulous lady called Gemma Bailey, and across the country, I think we've got about 40 odd licensed practitioners now. And there's even more people who have done the training and are out there, and they offer school term time programs, after school clubs, all sorts of different things, one-to-ones, workshops for parents and teachers, and basically if there's things that you want us to do with young people to help improve their confidence, deal with anger, emotions, all those sorts of things, exam confidence in particular at the moment is a popular one, then there'll be a therapist near you who will be able to help. In terms of getting hold of me, I've got my Facebook page, which is Soo Matthews, NLP4KIDS West Yorkshire, I think. I always get muddled up with it because it's such a long one. And
You're on Twitter?
Twitter as Soo Matthews, and also as NLP4KIDS West Yorkshire. And I can't remember where else. Oh, my website, westyorkshirechildtherapy.nlp4kids.org. But basically, if you Google my name, Soo Matthews, then you'll probably find me in the right place.
Okay, and you say that you go into schools and you talk with the children, the parents, and the teachers. I mean, do you offer one-to-ones in schools and both privately? How does it work?
Yep. So I will do all of those.
Okay.
So at the moment I work 3 days a week full time for Pivot Academy, doing some one-to-one therapy with the young people, doing some staff training on things like ACEs that we did last week, and then last Friday, a week ago Friday, I did some training over in Bradford for staff on managing their stress levels, and gave them some havening and tapping and a bit of NLP training. I work one-to-one with children. I've worked one-to-one, particularly in special schools I seem to get called into because I've got that deeper knowledge of autism, ADHD, those kind of things. So yeah, quite a varied, and I never know who's going to walk through the door. So I've had a client return to me just recently who lived in Leeds. I saw them about 3 years ago. They moved over to Manchester within the last year, and then they've recontacted me, but they hadn't realised it was me again, and I hadn't quite realised it was them, although the name sounded familiar. So sometimes they'll come for a free consultation, and then it'll be a while before they come back again, and it's always at the time that's right for them.
So you work within a school and you're also freelance.
Yes.
I mean, do you think that this kind of work on these techniques need to be in our curriculum?
I do, and there's a lot of schools now who are offering mindfulness, for example, yoga, and some of those more holistic approaches. The schools where the NLP4KIDS practitioners go in on a 10-week programme, they are reporting really big improvements in terms of child confidence, if that's what the programme's for, and details about those can be found on the nlp4kids.org website, which is the main website. So there's a lot of schools out there are doing resilience-based work as well, and there's many different kinds of approaches that more forward-thinking schools are putting in place now, which is really important for the young people.
I agree. I think it is very, very important, and children are like sponges. They will take that information on board, they will take those techniques on board, but I'm sure there's still schools out there that will not entertain this.
There are, and sometimes that's twofold. Sometimes it is a financial thing.
Okay, yes.
So for some schools, they're so strapped for cash these days that that can be an issue. However, Gemma is really good at finding different funding sources for schools, and there are all sorts of different charitable pots of money that schools can access. It's just about them knowing where they are, and some of it's because they're so driven by the curriculum side of things that they forget about the emotional well-being of the young people. And like I said earlier, that's where the mental health award scheme is so useful for schools, because it takes a look at the bigger picture of what's going on for the children, the parents and the teachers, because it's stressful to be a parent now as well. And parents nowadays will say, well, we didn't have that when I was a child, and you're so lucky now, you've got all these things. Parents now are struggling with, I'm going to use the F word, fortnight. Sorry, Richard, I should have warned you about that one.
I thought you were going to drop the F-bomb.
No, I don't drop the F-bomb. No, not very often anyway. But Fortnite, the online computer game, that is a big cause for concern amongst teachers and parents at the moment, because it's so addictive. And they're reporting a big change in children's stress levels and anger and behaviour, and the children are not seeing it. And it's kind of a reverse meditative thing. So because it's so addictive, they go into a trance-like state where they're involved in this, and I've never played the game, but from what I've read, they've got a short time to achieve something, and when they don't, the frustration levels go up. So there's big concerns around that. So
Yeah.
we help parents to understand that and put in place different strategies, some of which might be basic parenting, but there's other things that we do for them as well.
So in regards to the workshops that you do with the parents and the children, are they very similar? Are you showing the parents the same techniques as you're showing the children?
Yeah. So we'll talk about, for example, the communication model in NLP.
Yeah.
So we'll start with a drawing of a face, a sideways face, and talk about all the input that we have into our brains from the experiences that we've had. And then we will talk about our brains only managing a set amount of information. So until I mention it right now, you're not aware of your seat, your bottom on the seat, things like that. And then we'll talk about them either deleting things, so forgetting. So parents who are stressed about their naughty children, naughty in inverted commas, they've forgotten all the good times. They've forgotten all the good things that their children have done and all their strengths. So we need to remind them of those sometimes. They'll distort them, make them much worse than they are or much better than they are. And they'll generalise, they're always on their computer, they're always on their phone. And from the children's point of view, my mum never lets me use my computer. My dad's always telling me off. And just parents and children knowing that basic model about how those things then affect our emotions, which affects our behaviours, which affects our outcomes. Just knowing that simple little model helps them to understand, actually, we can break those patterns of thought. And that's usually where we start most things.
Because I think it is important because if you educate the children in schools and then they're going home to parents that don't understand what's being taught at school or the techniques, then they obviously might not encourage the children to do that. So I think it is important to educate the parents and the children.
Absolutely.
And obviously the teachers involved. I mean, if you wanted to share something, I know that there's GCSEs at the moment and the other SATs, is it?
SATs.
See, I don't have children. SATs. So if there was like a simple little exercise that you could share with people today, what would that be to reduce the stress and the anxiety around that?
Around exams
Yes.
and tests. I would actually do a bit of a guided meditation with young people, get them to close their eyes, and get them to imagine somebody who they knew was super confident about things that they do. So usually they've got a sporting star or a pop star that they admire, and I'll get them to imagine in their mind that they've got all the best bits of that person's confidence in them, and they're going to walk like that person. They're going to strut their stuff like that person, and they are going to go into the exam room with the confidence of that person. And we don't have time to go into it on detail now, but I would also do an anchoring technique with them, which I think you did the other week, where you think of a feeling and a time where you were really confident, and you super colour it, you make it larger than life, and you make it go all the way through their body and get them to sit up straight. And I will sometimes get them to strut their stuff in the room, and get them to mentally say, and sometimes out loud as well if that's appropriate, I can do this, I'm in control, I've got this. And just visualising themselves repeatedly going through that can be enough. And that's a simple technique that anybody can do.
And it is very powerful. So again, I asked you to choose another song. What was it, Sue?
I've forgotten. I sent you. The thing is, Narelle, we had so many that I sent you. Is it the Script one we're going for?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Script's one of my favourite bands I discovered a few years ago, and I just love the lyrics on this song.
Right. Just before we go to the song, we've got a couple of messages. There's Debbie Kinghorn saying you're
Hi, Debbie. I've got some of Debbie's books here as well.
Right, so hold them up to the camera there. So that,
Debbie's wrote some fabulous books called Amy and the Feelings Basket, which is suitable for younger children.
Right, and also there's John King from Newcastle near Sydney in Australia.
Oh wow, hi John.
Oh, hello, I love Sydney.
Yeah, so this
Brilliant.
is a script, and it's not right for you. Is that right?
That's the one.
So we're right back after this.
heart's heavy and it sinks like a stone. She said, is this the life you've been dreaming of? Spending half the day away from the things you love. It's not too late to do something new. Yeah, she said, it's hard enough trying to live your life, but not following your dreams leaves you dead inside. If you don't love what you do, it's not right for you. If you even have to think about it, it's not right for you. If you really have to think about it, you got one life to love what you do. My hands are scarred by things I shouldn't have done. My feet are weary from all the miles that I've run. Yeah, open your mind, take a look within. Are you happy with the world that you're living in? If not, you gotta change what you do. Yeah. Lately I don't see you smile a lot. Are you happy here with me and the things we got? If you can't say that it's true, it's not right for you. If you even have to think about it, it's not right for you. If you really have to think about it, you got one life to love what you do. If we don't do something now, then we'll never know. If we stay here too long, then we will never go. So before it's too late and it's killing you, yeah, we've only one life to live, so love what you do. It's not right for you. If you even have to think about it, it's not right for you. If you really have to think about it, you got one life to love what you do. In the end, better hope that you're taking it all in. In the end, you got one life to love what you do. In the end, better hope that you're taking it all in. In the end, you got one life to love what you do.
College Grove Nursery in Wakefield has been providing the highest standard of childcare for over 22 years. Situated on Eastmore Road, we are close to the M1 and M62 motorway network and also convenient for Wakefield city centre, schools and major places of employment. For more details, check out our website at www.collegegrovenursery.co.uk or give us a call on 01924 200 120 to arrange a visit. College Grove, a special nursery which takes a hand, opens a mind and touches a heart.
Make way. The new music food truck is backing in. Powered by Ion Indie Magazine.
Welcome to the big new beat and popular music.
It's the new music food truck.
Hey, it's Stace Edwards. My brother Jim and I are cooking up a tasty batch of music for you every week on the new music food truck. Join us as we serve up hot, fresh, new alternative and indie music from around the world. Every Saturday at noon right here on Smile Radio. Smile Radio, the home of undiscovered indie, rock, alternative, good times, and now the new music food truck.
And we're back with Narelle Summers. Be kind to your mind. Over to you, Sue.
Yes, what I'd like to say is a big, big thank you, Sue, for coming in today. As I said at the beginning of this programme, I primarily work with adults, and I do think it is really, really important for people like yourself, Sue, to work with children, because I do think that the world has changed so much, and I think there's so much pressure on young people today, both in the education system and in their personal life as well. So Sue, have you got any workshops or anything coming up or that's available?
At the moment, I've got there's a NLP for Teachers one I'm doing for Pivot Academy in the half-term holiday, which is specifically for them. And then there will be other parent and teacher workshops coming on later on in the year. And I'm also able to go and do the workshops like I did last week, stress reduction things for teachers in schools. It was quite ironic last Friday because I was sitting in the entrance hall waiting to go up to do the training, and the staff were walking past going, oh, training today. And I was so conscious that in their very stressful lives I was coming in to do a stress relief training session, but it went very well and they did really well on it. So yeah, if people want to get in touch with me, you can email me at soo@nlp4kids.org. Just let me know what it is that they need and I will do my best to provide and tailor workshops specifically for individual schools. So if you are a special school in particular, then I can tailor it to looking at the specific needs of the young people. If you're after something that's more academic for the children who are doing the more academic type stuff, then we can tailor it for that as well. So just let me know.
Yeah, so if there's any teachers out there or parents, you know, if you have a child that you feel that may benefit from seeing Sue, I would highly recommend her to you, both within schools and, you know, and privately to do this. And she's given her details today. And also, if you want to contact Sue or myself, you can contact us through Smile Radio, and I'm sure Richard's going to reel off the addresses for me.
So you can email me, richard@smileradio.co, or if you go to Instagram and Twitter, it's smileradio3. But drop us a message and I'll pass it on if you didn't get Sue's details earlier. So
brilliant. And I also go round delivering speeches. My talk is called Be Kind to Your Mind. So if there's any groups out there or organisations, it covers about 6 or 7 different techniques on how to look after yourself as well. That is for adults only. I do have a Facebook group which is closed, which is Be Kind to Your Mind, and my website is narellesummers.co.uk.
So all that's left is really just to say thank you so much for coming in, and don't forget, if you've missed this show, you can catch it again on our website. Go to smileradio.co, click on demand and download the podcast, Podbeam, iTunes, Spotify and all the major podcasting sites. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming in. You're always welcome to come again, because you want to see all the information on London S. There's shed loads. And she was worried that she didn't have enough information to talk about, and we've not even scratched the surface.
No, we haven't. Thank you very much for inviting me today, Narelle and Richard. It's been a lovely experience.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much. And don't forget the new music food truck at 12 o'clock today. So thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of the weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Your mouth is a revolver, find bullets in the sky. Your love is like a soldier, loyal till you die. And I've been looking at the stars for a long, long time. I've been putting out fires all my life. Everybody wants a flame, they don't want to get burned. And today is our turn. Days like these lead to nights like this, lead to love like ours. You light the spark in my bonfire heart. People like us, we don't need that much. Just someone that starts the spark in our bonfire hearts. This world is getting colder, strangers passing by. No one offers you a shoulder, no one looks you in the eye. But I've been looking at you for a long, long time, just trying to break through, trying to make you mine. Everybody wants to flame, they don't want to get by. Well, today